and welcome to this really important topic. And you are all very welcome today. My name is Marie Brennan and I run the postgraduate courses at Norwich University of the Arts. And I'm really interested in arts and climate change, and particularly where I've been working in the past in design and sustainability, and really how we can all live more harmoniously with nature. I'm a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts and a member of the Institute of Designers in Ireland, and I also act as an advisor to the British Council Arts and Creativity Group, and climate change is one of the issues that we look at there. I'm also an ambassador for the Five Gaias, which is a US-based organisation raising awareness of marine plastic pollution. And I'm delighted to be chairing this event today, especially to listen to the talks ahead. Unfortunately, one of our speakers, Zoe Svensson, can't be here today for personal circumstances, and our thoughts are and wishes are with her and her family. The session then this afternoon is to explore how climate change is influencing the arts, and Zoe has kindly given us a film to show instead, seeing as she can't be here. Zoe's a dramaturg and a lecturer in drama and performance at the University of Cambridge, and we'll be kicking off the session today with Zoe's film. Can I just ask that you make sure that your microphones are muted while the talks and films are showing, and also to remind you that the session is being recorded and we'll be taking the Q&A at the end. We'll see if we can take the Q&A live, but if not, we'll do it through the chat, and I will act as a kind of a radio presenter and pick those out. I also wanted to introduce our other two speakers today. We have Rachel Drury. Rachel is the co-founder and director of Collusion, which is a small but mightily innovative arts organisation based in Cambridge and King's Lynn. Collusion create and produce new public artworks that explore the creative use of technologies and the impact of emerging technology on society. Their activities support artists' talent development and placemaking to deliver dynamic, imaginative new experiences for the public. Collusion are currently working on a trilogy of climate change focused projects in King's Lynn. The next speaker is actually one of my colleagues at Norwich University of the Arts, Marina Velez. Marina is an artist and researcher working across areas of contemporary art and sustainability. Marina's practice focuses on people's behaviour and the social construction of values that we place, and the emphasis on how these values affect the protection or degradation of other species and the environment. She's a member of the Swiss Artistic Research Network and Art Research Circle 7 at the Nordic Summer University. She's also the founder and organizer of the Sustainability Art Prize and the Cambridge Sustainability Residency for Artists. So we've got a really talented panel ahead to listen to. But we're first of all going to start to show Zoe's film, which is going to be introduced by Rachel Drury.
Okay, I think we'll start by showing Zoe's film, which is about a project she's working on at the moment called Love Letters to a Livable Future. So I'm just going to share this screen. There you go.
This is a love letter to you and to the future. It is the close of the year, December 2020. And you are already in our future. We are writing to you across time and landmass and difference. The first step is to face what we are living through.
High carbon culture is selling fruit that is peeled and then wrapped in plastic.
High carbon culture is preparing to live on the moon in gated communities.
High carbon culture is saying, things calm down for me a bit more next week, but they never do.
High carbon culture is families watching different things on different devices at the same time in the same room.
It's seeing play as a waste of time.
High carbon culture is seeing care for the environment as a matter of personal choice.
It's breathing plastic particles.
is pooing plastic particles.
High carbon culture is output, 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 output.
We know we can't flick a switch and escape just like that. But we can imagine it otherwise, so that when the time comes, we are ready.
High carbon culture.
High carbon culture.
High carbon culture.
High carbon
culture.
I got very excited thinking positively about the future, coming into a space where you actually can create hopeful scenarios as a counterpoint. It was just such a relief. I always felt like I'd love to live in that place, and where can I sign up?
How do we process everything that's going on? Like, where is the spaces to protest, to kind of imagine, to kind of grieve, to kind of pull apart all of these things that we are collectively experiencing, or you know, experience the same collective condition, but obviously our experiences through it are different, and actually a show, the imaginative world, the story world, is a space to do that.
What we're looking at, reimagining of the future, remodelling a new world, and the way in which we do it is a very different form.
Thinking about the future in terms of discussion, writing, imagination, interactive, collective sharing and experiences.
Having time to come together, to be together in this space, to imagine a future which actually holds all sorts of positive possibilities at this time has been really, really important.
What this project allows me to do is understand the severity of the kind of global situation in regards to climate change, in regards to misjustice, sustainable fashion, to a sustainable economy. That kind of joined up thinking facilitates me to be hopeful in like my day-to-day life.
Sometimes it's useful kind of having something kind of demonstrated in a performative kind of way. The experience of kind of seeing that things could be different, or here are some of the ways that things could be different.
All the sense of different possibilities that are out there suddenly creates a much broader sense, not just of the future but of our present. But it's not that people suddenly started doing it for the first time, it's that when you're alerted to other ways of looking at the world, it's there in your presence.
None of the ideas in the project are new. They're all stuff that people are working on already, and I just love the exercise of being present but in a different reality.
In imagining, we're realising how imperative this is to a lot of the kind of activist principles and stuff that I really care about, and the way in which I think theatre and arts can make social change. It's been really fun, and it's been we've laughed a lot, and it's been silly. It's been really freeing.
So we've basically spent a lot of time writing out things on postcards, everywhere. There's all of this, all of these, literally all of that is there's text and everywhere, and there's more postcards here, and they're not just us. These are stuff that people have been writing from years and years of stuff and dreams and ideas and thoughts, and every time we come back into the room they live, rather than one person's sort of dream or vision. It's it becomes this infrastructure for the whole world.
So while others are writing a dystopian future for us, we have started to write the future we want instead. The thing is, we've done it before. We already know how to do more with less. In World War II, Zoe's grandmother's sister ran the Dig for Victory campaign at London's Kew Gardens, growing vegetables and advising others how to do it. So this is a love letter to you and the future you want. We're not just flirting. It won't be easy. But from the ruins, we write to you with love, towards another future.
Okay, so Zoe's, as Marie said, is the director of Metis Arts, and they are an organisation that does some very long-term research-led projects, which Zoe describes as research in public. So throughout the course of any project they're looking to develop, they have these kind of conversations that involve lots of experts, as well as members of the public, to talk about the issues that they're finding and to share all of this learning. And it's an extraordinary experience to go along to the kind of sessions that Zoe runs. So I'd really recommend for people to do that. So this particular project, and where they are at the moment, is bringing together creatives and specialists to kind of imagine what the inhabitants of an alternative future might feel like, and what it might actually be like to live in a culture that's care driven rather than maybe economically driven. For each other and for the earth, what might the impact of the earth be if we take this very different starting point for policy and care? So if you do want to find out more about this project, Zoe's going to be running a session on Thursday with Cambridge Junction online as part of the festival. So it's Love Letters to a Livable Future, a conversation. It's Thursday at 1:30, and you can get your tickets from Junction website, junction.co.uk. Let's pay what you want. So accessible for everyone. But Zoe's projects are extraordinary. I think I first met Zoe in 2010 when I took part in a project in a shipping container where we were imagining and controlling our future with lots of guided videos and things. And we projected ourselves into the future, into this chaotic scenario that was quite overwhelming. And I can remember the moment the shipping container doors opened and I realised I was still in the now, and things weren't as bad as it's happened in this voting scenario we just had. So extraordinary work created by Metis that really does consider in very interesting ways the impacts that climate change is having on our lives.
Thank you very much, Rachel. It's really interesting work. I've really enjoyed the idea about the future focus and the speculative aspect of it, which really does take us into a different place and makes us think about our own behaviours and practices as well. So the next speaker up is actually yourself. Rachel, again, if you want to introduce you again as the Director of Collusion Arts, and feel free now to go ahead with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So hopefully everyone can see my presentation and not my notes. So thank you very much for inviting me to part of this session and to share how climate change is shaping Collusion's work. As Marie said, we're a not-for-profit organisation focusing on arts and tech, and we create experimental public space spanning physical and digital realms. It's typically playful and experimental work. We don't necessarily know what we're going to achieve at the end of it. We focus on artistic development and place, and engaging new audiences and participants with creative technology. Environmental sustainability is something we consider throughout our work. So in relation to travel, printing, the kind of materials we use, and if we buy a material, we think about how can we use it or give it away. And also we have a lot of tech equipment naturally, and it's not used all the time. So we think about how we can loan it to our friends or associates and make more use of that equipment as we're going through. But kind of focusing on our work now, you can see from this image, it involves lots of different approaches: VR, AI, lots of sensor-based work, motion capture, interactivity, but all kinds of different things. But the picture of the building lit up on the top right is the Custom House in King's Lynn. And we've been working there for, I think it's about 5 years now. They have a system of large-scale outdoor projectors that they'd installed for a project, I think about 6 years ago, and after that had no work for it. So when we started working in King's Lynn, we were thinking about how we could use this equipment in new and interesting ways to show interactivity and community engagement and collaboration in new and interesting kinds of ways. And the project that's in that image is Reveal, which took place at the end of 2018. So that image is actually of a game that you could play on your phone. It was a bit like a Rubik's Cube, where you could reorganize the pictures. And actually it would, if you did it successfully, there'd be a dragon that appeared as part of the story. So we've been working there for a couple of years by early 2019. And focusing on these kind of new creative opportunities to create these large-scale outdoor works. And we were thinking about a new 2-year programme. We wanted to focus on something that could really engage everyone, but particularly the children and young people who were living there. And then the school climate strike started. So this was in Norwich on the 15th of February 2019. And I just happened to be there with my family outside the Forum, which is the main library in Norwich. And it really struck me, I mean, although obviously we've been hearing about it on the news, but it struck me this kind of passion and the recognition of what an enormous problem climate change is for this generation. And, you know, also alongside that, at the same time, the older generation seemed quite full of cynicism about what the young people are doing, you know, this kind of idea they just wanted to bunk off school. And that, you know, I didn't think was a fair opinion at all. You know, we have been complicit in the future that they face, and it's our lack of action that makes it so urgent, us and other generations. So at Collusion, we were thinking about all of this. You know, we were thinking about how we were full of similar passion for the earth as children. You know, I sold Greenpeace badges at school to save the whales when I was 5. And so were many of us. But now our to-do lists are really full, and we struggle to do as much as we might want to. And the messages have also got much more complex and become this massive existential problem that's really too big for us to think, okay, well, if I do this, it's going to solve the problem. You know, when we were kids, if we recycled our cans, you know, we knew that it would help to deal with some of the problems that were happening. But now it's a much bigger issue. So, but on the other side, climate change has moved in our lifetime to being something, you know, that a few people used to talk about when I was a kid, but now it's a bigger shared agenda. It's something we talk about every day. It's a societal problem and a normal part of our dialogue. But often it comes across in negatives, that terms, this kind of soul-crushing terms, focusing on problems and not solutions. And I think a lot of people then, you know, feel a bit overwhelmed and unsure about what to do. So climate change was something that we were interested in, this kind of agenda, and we knew that the local council were developing and escalating plans around combating climate change too, but it was also a town scale issue and interest. And so it felt like something that we could do something really interesting with as part of this 2-year programme. So we thought we would use arts and creativity to actively engage communities to collaborate around and amplify positive discussion and action around climate change, particularly for children and young people. And so the Game On trilogy was born. So Game On came from the idea that we were looking at interactivity on the projectors. And then we have a set of projects within that. And I should say at this point that every single aspect of this programme has been affected by the pandemic, our timescale, some of the projects in whole, and entirely the way we deliver them. But we have produced some, and are producing some interesting work, I hope. So the first project was a national commission. It was due to take part in May 2020, but was then delayed till October. And actually now we're going to reshow it in November this year, in line with COP26 as well. The intention of this work was to be a conversation starter for 10, to engage communities in co-creating the final work. Because of the timing of it, we ended up having to do it entirely remotely, which is not what we'd have wanted. But we did kind of develop a really interesting work working with artist Ben Sheppy, who's a very experienced 3D and projection artist, who worked internationally, and actually he wanted to do more to kind of promote positive action around climate change. So we created with him these 5 3D animations, which were projected onto historic buildings around King's Lynn, highlighting ways to reverse the effects of climate change. And all of these focuses were tailored to the location and the locality. But I'll let Ben explain a bit more about the project.
My name is Ben Sheppy. I'm a visual artist, and I've been doing visuals for over 20 years. And transferring them into lots of different mediums, print, VR, holograms, and just trying out lots of experiments. It's just a hobby of mine that has turned into a career. The topic of climate change seems to be marred in a way. There's kind of a doomsday feeling about it. I was thinking about a more positive way to frame the issue and came across a science research project called Drawdown. It's a team of scientists and a number of researchers all collecting statistics and information about what might be required in order to reverse the effects of climate change. It's really interesting to me that some of the solutions in the Drawdown project are quite simple things that we can all do. And I really wanted to bring those simple solutions to the community here at King's Lynn and almost show people how easy it is to start responding to the climate movement.
Okay, so that project was a really exciting project. As I say, it's going to be shown again in November if people are interested to come and see it. But it got a conversation started in King's Lynn about these practical ways you could that you could help to reduce the impact of climate change, including this index that's been developed internationally, where the number one way to help combat climate change is reducing food waste, something very easy that we can all do. So I think it's a very interesting approach to that issue. The second project is coming up in October. It was actually meant to be delivered this March, but again, because of the third lockdown, it moved. But it's a very different project. We're working, it's a project we're leading, developing the team around 15 artists, many of them based locally. It's fictional, it's about climate change, but it's definitely positive and fun. It's a sci-fi time travel adventure, mixed reality public art project for families. The premise is that the King's Lynn of 2225 is thriving and climate change has been solved. But then there's a glitch, and the intergalactic Hanseatic League crew have to travel back in time to engage the people of King's Lynn in 2021 to help fix the glitch with the help of the community and restore the town's shiny future. So the IHL crew have recruited the children and young people of the town as agents of change. So in spite of the third lockdown, we've worked remotely with 250 students at the college there, the College of West Anglia, and 550 children across 3 primary schools and out of school clubs to develop the content. So the image on this slide is the data log, which is like a printed book they've been working with that introduced the IHL crew and gave them a number of tasks to think about in terms of designing the future around transport, clothes, fashion, and then plans for their town. And all of that content will then be featuring in the live projections, which will also include a rocket game played on the side of a grade 1 listed tower that requires collaboration to operate. So trying to get across this idea that we need to collaborate to help to address this issue. There'll also be an interactive sound installation in a park, a TikTok challenge that's being developed by 2 college students. It'll be about kind of appreciating life and the positive things we do. And also a series of films from the crew of the IHL Discovery as they attempt to communicate with King's Lynn from their parking spot at the edge of a black hole. So we'll have a website, the IHL.com, which will have more information on as we get closer to launch. But I'm just going to give you a small glimpse now and show you the kind of very different approach to this project about climate change.
King's Lynn, come in. Can you read me, King? Can you read me? Jeff, if this is switched on, is it working? I can't. I'm not. I don't know.
So more to come, and that campaign, there'll be more videos launched probably late in the summer in the lead up to the project. And yeah, very different approach and very exciting and fun. And so finally, the final project, which now will be delivered in March 2022, is called Manifesto. For this project, we're going to be working with the young people of King's Lynn to develop a climate change manifesto for the town and to create artworks that embody those messages. So like a living climate change art manifesto, maybe. We're still at the very early stages of this, so in the pre-production stage, but we're thinking about issues around citizenship, democracy, and how you communicate your message in a way that actively engages others positively. So, you know, the opposite of this kind of cancel culture approach that actually seeks to involve people and have a conversation. We'll be developing artistic ideas that not only reflect the interests and ideas of young people, but also co-created by them. And we will also about to start engaging local partners in many different ways. So we want local partners to kind of show that they support the ideas that emerge. We also are looking for partners that can support in terms of expertise and advice. So we're thinking about how we involve academics in terms of supporting young people around giving them information and those kinds of things. And also we were thinking about the technology we use and how we might use some of these new online technologies that have been used to create these consensus-based legal process laws and those kinds of things in the past. So very much looking forward to this project. I think it's going to be a really kind of exciting and way to build on the previous two. And actually the work for this with young people probably will be happening around September at the same time as the other two projects are now being delivered. So, so there we are. So that's how climate change is influencing our work. It's very much about people, places, ideas, inspiration and passion. And we hope we can play a role in amplifying young people's passion and ideas and inspiring the older generations to take action, support them and protect their futures. And we invite you to come and join us in King's Lynn to see for yourself. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, that was fascinating. I really like the way quite often we do feel a little bit powerless. And I think with the work that you're doing at Collusion, it has given us a sense of being active. It reduces that impotence so that we're able to work actively about something. We will be taking the Q&A at the end. So I'd just like to now hand over to Marina Velez, who'll be talking about her work.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Rachel, for a lovely presentation and also for being the voice of Zoe, who cannot be here today with us. So it's fascinating to see what other people are doing in different places. And now I'm going to share with you my own research. It's an academic research. And I'm going to start by sharing the screen. And so all confirmed, is it working? Yeah, excellent. So, so what I would like to share with you today is specific my research and what I do around art and climate change. My research is placed in Belalcázar, which is a very, very small village in the north of Andalusia. So in Spain, we can see a map here, and that white dot, that's where Belalcázar is situated. So we're talking in the context of Andalusia and also the context of the rural. So my practice-based research is motivated by environmental crisis, the exploration of other more caring ways of relating to the environment. And this particular place, Belalcázar, we can see the castle there in the picture as typical of the town. This place offered an opportunity to interact directly with farmers and shepherds who are at the intersection of climate, ecological and social change, as they experienced firsthand the droughts and the desertification of the place and all the ecological problems that the changes, the ecological degradations as well, as young people migrate to the cities and the traditional farms close down and so forth. So as I said, I do research on the rural, and the rural is a problematic concept. It can be associated with landscape, with leisure, with the sublime, with romanticism, but it can also be associated with food production, or it can also be something like this. So this is also Andalusia, that's Spain. And so this is in polytunnels, intensive corporate farming production in Almeria. And this has been nicknamed the Sea of Plastic because it's actually visible from so this picture was from space. This picture was taken by the spacecraft Terra and circulated in the media. So it was nicknamed the Sea of Plastic. So in my practice, where I work with shepherds and farmers in Belalcázar, I approach the concept of the rural in a different way. I approach that as proximity and diversity. So proximity as in proximity to the land, and diversity as in cultural diversity, knowledge diversity, biodiversity, of course. So the proximity to the land in Spanish, land is tierra, means the planet Earth, means soil, means earth. So there means countryside as well. There's a lot of playing words there. So one of the main issues in this area associated with climate change is desertification. Which is not only linked to reducing the capacities to produce food, but it also comes in the shape of migration to the city, as I said, and also death of centuries-old cultures, loss of values and meanings, and destruction of ecosystems. So if you think about how an olive grove is cultivated, the traditional way is very organic. So the olive trees are very old and they don't produce that much, but they are very resilient. And they are, the terrain is undulated and they are placed in an organic way. And among the olive trees, there's a lot of biodiversity and that is living there. It's an ecosystem. Now, those olive trees are being replaced by other engineered olive trees, which are smaller and they produce more, but they need watering. And also they are planted in rows for the machines to come in between. And very little can live there. It's not really an ecosystem. So I explore all that in my field work. And I want to cite Winona Leduc. She says that there is a direct relationship between the loss of biodiversity and the loss of cultural diversity here. So my practice in particular involves photography, video interventions, dialogue, and working with. These methodological approaches extended throughout the practice as democracy of experiences, non-extractive research, critical self-reflection, and moment-to-moment inquiries. So this allowed, in a way, photography, video, and interventions, the flexibility to weave into an integrative and reflective process, but mainly to listen more and to interrupt less. So, let's see my notes here. Yes, the practice facilitated a change from subjects to relationships, from quantities to qualities, from measuring to mapping, and the relationships between land, flora, fauna, and humans became the central aspect of the research, offering a space for mutual recognition of multiplicity, diversity, presence, and vitality. As such, the rural, or this part of the rural, this aspect of the rural, can be considered as the last anti-colonial and anti-capitalist bastion, because, and the reason why I say that is because the knowledges their knowledges form resistance, not only against desertification and climate change, but also against the propagation of corporate ways of food production. And what we can see here in this image is one of the shepherds and farmers and shepherds who I work with, Andres. So this is the place where the family keeps their seeds. So these seeds have been passed on from generation to generation. They have been obviously altered and modified in a space of time that is respectful with the evolution of the natural world, and is the wealth of knowledges they are embedded in their seeds. So to give an example of how I use a practice, I'm going to focus, we don't have much time to go into all the work I do there, but just to present one of the works. This work is 50095, and it's a work in which I tried as an artist to open up spaces for dialogical practices to emerge. So this work started with the idea of installing an action camera on one of the sheep, and here we are installing the action camera. And then taking the sheep to pasture. That's an activity that is done twice per day. You can't see the camera, so it was very non-invasive, really. And then we would come back to the house, the farmhouse, where after the walks you come back to have meal, to rest, and I would download the videos and we would watch that. So by watching together the videos, the dialogue emerged naturally and unstructured, in an unstructured way, which was what I was looking for. Because when we are looking at values, so the value of traditional shepherding, or the value of the land, or the value of knowledges about shepherding, so it would have been a little bit kind of contrived if it would have been on a questionnaire, but like this kind of emerged quite naturally. So I'm going to share with you a very short video that to give you an idea of how this was recorded.
Pasito ahí ahora. Y ahí. Vamos a ver la fruta que es la fruta, porque no voy a torcer porque no voy a torcer.
Está precioso.
So, to conclude, it is from my research, I can see that climate change, loss of culture, of rural culture, and the pressure of a globalized market impact on the land and its people, and that losing the ability to connect to and understand the land are in themselves also acts of desertification. And I believe that our practices can, in their capacities to explore complex and ambiguous meaning, help in making some invisible values visible. Also, our practices can bring about a form of cognizing which can help us to look with discerning eyes into nature and to protect pluralistic considerations of knowledge, which render life in all its diversity possible. Well, thank you very much. Going to stop sharing now.
So I'm hoping that out into the Q&A section of our afternoon. And one of the first questions I wanted to ask, which is to both panelists, we've got a number of questions coming through, so I'll interpret them through, is how can we bring sustainability in art into our creative education systems? I don't know, Sophie, if you
Sorry, Marina, I think we lost you a bit there. Right.
Yeah, she's frozen. Are you okay, Marina? You froze for a bit.
Marie, I think we lost you for a bit. So you were asking, asking how can we bring sustainability into the curriculum, the creative
curriculum. Yes.
I'm happy to take that one because I think sometimes in the people in academia who work in the creative curriculum look at sustainability as an afterthought or as something that has to be added on. And it would be interesting to turn it on its head and to say, well, this is something that we can look through. So look at the creative curriculum through the lens of sustainability. So it could be in every aspect, whether you're talking about materiality of your practice, or whether you're talking about the themes, or whether you're talking about methodologies, or how to disseminate your research. So in a way, if you're using that lens, it's a way of, building a practice that is already has embedded sustainability rather than added on at the end.
Yeah, I think that's the key point, isn't it? Is making sure that it is embedded as a central part. I've got a question here now, the next one from Garth, which is around, I think, some of the issues that were raised in Rachel's talk, where some of the individual mitigation techniques that we can bring in, such as solar panels, heat pumps, EVs, are not affordable by all at the moment. But most of us can do our best to recycle and walk more or buy or grow food locally. And is there any concentration on those topics in the work of Collusion?
Sure. So I think this question relates to the Drawdown project that I talked about, which related to this international list of the top 100 ways that you could mitigate the impact of climate change. So Ben's project was talking about those under 5 things, which are food, energy, emissions, water, and afforestation. And within those themes, he picked 5 of the top issues to kind of talk about that were important to King's Lynn. So we obviously want to make sure that they're issues that people understand and relate to, particularly as they're being flashed up on a projection. But in terms of affordability, that's important. But actually, I guess the kind of bigger issue is that these are the ways that the things that we need to do. Not everyone's going to be able to afford them, but actually, you know, we're all going to need to adapt our approaches to start to think about how we can afford these things in the longer term. So we know that somewhere like King's Lynn, there's a lot of offshore, you know, wind generation, windmills and things like that, as well as onshore. So some of the things we talked about were definitely not for individuals, where others are. And I think, you know, increasingly the cost of things to your own home, like you know, insulation, for example, is one of the, you know, most important and crucial ways you can reduce the impact of climate change. You know, there's lots and lots of grants available to support people make those improvements. So I think that one, I mean, space arts projects are about putting the issues out there for people to have a conversation. They're never about telling people you should do this, that, or the other. And the second thing is, I suppose, we're highlighting the ways that might be relevant to most people within that place, about how it might help to reduce the impact. So affordability is a consideration in terms of making sure it's relevant, but at the same time, I think we're, you know, we know that things like recycling and, you know, planting more trees are great, but they're not the things that are going to have the biggest impact at all.
Thank you. And then another question for you, Rachel, is projective art found to be really engaging the public in practice?
It's an interesting question. So when we came to King's Lynn, there'd been a project funded with EU funding, I think about a few years before we got there. And it was, you know, quite dynamic and the work's very well recognised, but we were showing that actually there was a lot more that you could do than just project work. So whilst projection sits in our projects, we're talking about these town scale projects that have other elements to them. So Drawdown, I suppose, was just projections, but I have to say we produced that throughout 2020 and we literally couldn't even meet each other. So, but the other work that we do is all, you know, far more engaged. So, you know, we've been, for example, the game that's on the tower, that's going to be on the tower as part of the IHL project. We've worked with students at the college to help users test that and other artists, and then there's going to be this interactivity within it. So we're involving communities in a way that kind of makes them part of that work. But from an artistic point of view as well, King's Lynn, with these 5 permanently sited outside projectors, has a resource that nowhere else has. You know, this is actually a test bed, a place you can do these kind of really interesting works. And we're often asked, oh, could we come and do it somewhere else? And obviously we would say, okay, you provide the hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of equipment, and then we'll do the bit we can do, which is the content. So, so yes, the answer is we are engaging people, but it isn't just because we're projecting stuff and hoping people will come. We are creating projects that are relevant and engaging. In a previous project used augmented reality as part of the kind of trail engagement. We've used theatre and performance that link to the projections. You know, we're using like audio installations and interactivity as well. So it's definitely not just putting things up on projectors.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think from what I think you're also saying is quite often a lot of the work that we've seen from the film, from your presentation and Marina's, is around identity and place and space and how we live our lives within those spaces and how we adapt and change alongside it, which gives me rise to ask one of the questions.
Oh.
We lost you again, Marie.
Should we ask the next one on the list? Do you think that's what she was going for?
We lost you again.
Oh, I'm lost again. Yeah, I see that I've got this thing that says your internet is unstable, which is perfect timing. The question was.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Marina, do you want to? I'm trying to think. What, yeah, the question that Caroline Hyde Brown asked. Perhaps you can. Yeah, can you see it there on the Q&A?
Yes, I'm happy to read it. Land degradation in this particular part of Spain permanent? Is it human impact solely or other elements such as climate, low variable rainfall? Are solutions being put in place to help the indigenous practice by rural farmers? Okay, so this is a very complex question, and of course, complex questions, they have partial and complex answers. So this part of Spain is rather large. It's very different from the north to the south, the coastline, etc. It is the desertification is affecting the whole of Andalusia. It's creeping up, and there are measures put in place by the government, but those measures are always technologically driven. So they bring in experts from Israel, this and that, and it is all about decisions taken in Madrid and applied there. And very few people actually work with the locals. What artists can do, and a very good example, I'm not the only one working in the rural in Spain. There is the School of Shepherds created by Fernando Garcia Dori, and he is promoting the next generation of shepherding. So he's not waiting for the politicians to make decisions. He just, we go head on and we work with the people there. And yes, so, sorry, I lost the question. What is it?
It's around the idea about slow and organic methods of farming currently being supported or encouraged.
There is very little about it, and of course there are lots of contradictions. So the farmers want their children to have a better life and to study, so they go to the cities and they study, and then perhaps they stay in the city and they don't come back to run the farm, and maybe they are unemployed in the cities and the farms are being closed down, and we know what happened next. So the big corporations buy the land and so forth, so forth. So it's really is the tension between the traditional knowledges and but there are incentives as well from the government to bring young families back to the empty villages. It's been implemented since the year 2000 and is quite successful, but that doesn't mean to going back. So it's about populating the villages that are getting empty, but not necessarily about working on the land and food production. But I'm hopeful that something will come out of it. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm hoping you can hear me. Good. The next question is from Carla Sanchez. There's two questions really, both again from Marina at the moment. With what happens to the photographs and results of the research afterwards? And do you exhibit them in cities or elsewhere? And what is the reaction to your research in Madrid or in other cities?
So the way of disseminating my research is in academia, of course, and in exhibitions. And what is important is not only that that the work is disseminated, but also that the people I work with whom I work in Spain know about that. So there is a constant communication whenever I'm presenting work, whenever I'm presenting. So I let them know that this is being seen, and there is a sort of revaluing their cultures because they are being valued abroad and in academia. So there is this kind of feeding back and forth of where the work is going. So they are my main, my most important viewers, if you will. Yeah.
Thank you. We've got another kind of a question really, or comment to Rachel, which is around how do you actually engage with the school, particularly with schools and in education, seeing as there's so much activism in schools at the moment?
Well, for this project, I suppose the there's two ways, depending on the age of the young people. For the primary schools, we approached primary school head teachers because we wanted to work with the whole school. So we're working with Eastgate Primary in Kings Lynn, and we wanted to work with all years. And so we talked to the head teacher and talked about what it could mean, and they were really excited about ways in which they could run it as a cross-curricular project across the school, because it relates to history in terms of their history of being part of the Hanseatic League, as well as issues around kind of science and creativity and other things. So the kind of teachers really embraced it. And obviously, as we've delivered it all remotely, we gave them these booklets for the kids to kind of create work in, with lots of stimuli. And we also created teachers packs of a Padlet of information and some instructions and other ideas on how to kind of work with it. And actually, because we ended up doing it online and with these books, we extended it to work with 3 primary schools in total, plus out of school groups. But the other approach then is with the college. We're actually working with the work experience coordinators in the college. And so one of the things that's really important to us in relation to place is how you develop the capacity of that place to create their own work around the projectors and other opportunities. So how do you build the cultural capacity? So part of what we've been doing locally is working with other types of creative who maybe haven't worked in the public realm before. But within the college, we're starting to engage with different subject areas who maybe don't understand or aren't aware of how the skills they're developing apply to the kind of work that we're doing. And so with the computer games course, for example, they're developing 3D graphics and animation, which is great for creating content for projectors locally. So by working with the work experience coordinators, and we've done industry insight talks as well as different challenges around the project, it's been about involving them in the subject, but also kind of helping them to understand what it's like to work in the creative industries, how they can work within their local place creatively, and how they can contribute to what their career is not going to be this kind of narrow focus that it might seem when you're picking subjects in a school environment. It's actually going to be much broader, and there's loads of ways in which you can apply your skills. So yeah, so we just talk to people and see who's excited about playing.
Yeah, thank you. It's fascinating. Somebody has also asked if we could put the link to Zoe's event up in the chat so that people could attend that on Thursday, if that's possible.
I'll do that now.
Yeah, thank you. And then I think we've just probably we've got 2 minutes to go. There's one more question that's come through from Christopher, if I can just find that one. There's a number of questions that we probably haven't got time to answer, but it just shows how important this is. The question is for Marina, which is, could you share how you go about encouraging people in that neck of the woods to engage with this project and also the issues that you're talking about? He's hoping that your insights could help him encourage those in similar conditions. And it's proven very challenging to win them over. So it's about working with communities and groups, and how do you do that in some way?
Yeah, that's the question, because I like that Christopher pointed out that you're an outsider, and the thing about being an outsider, it can be a problem, but it can also be a blessing, because you can see more things. And coming from the outside, for me as a methodology, as an artist, is identifying what are the values that are prevalent in that community. So respect, friendship, generosity, very high on the agenda. So I arrive with my cameras, so that is very clear. I take pictures and I do videos, and that answers the question. And then I stay with them. I've been working with them for a number of years, since 2012. So it took quite a while to build up this relationship. But at the same time is this idea of being there, being rooted, being in the present, and and sharing with them. So I work with them. I work in the land, but maybe, I'm not sure whether I work or I help or not. Sometimes they will go and take pictures, but I walk the walk with them, and after a while they say, well, okay, it's fine. I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to share this with you, and that magical opening up happens, and it's patience. But also, I would recommend if you're working with to incorporate the methodology sometimes. Refusal methodology, so is very interesting. Is a methodology in which you create work for the people with whom you're working, but you refuse to make it available for academia or anyone else. And that is a bond. So it's called refusal methodology. It's a bond that I would recommend to use. And that's it. And I did that. So I made videos of them, and I projected that on the markets. They have an indoor market. We stretched a blanket in between two columns, and we projected that. So themselves, looking at themselves, going about their own business, and that's not available for dissemination.
Thank you. Well, I think we're just slightly over time, but I just want to say, I think that question and the way that both that Zoe, Rachel and Marina work is all about a values-driven practice that's about community and communication, and about making sure that we keep those avenues open to communicate and collaborate together, which is something that we need to keep on with this really important debate around society that we're facing, particularly with climate change and extinction and all of the things that go with it. So I think the idea about community and collaboration and values-driven practice is something that I've really taken from today. So I want to say thank you to everybody for attending. Let's keep the conversation going. Do attend the event, Zoe's event on Thursday. And I just want to say thank you all for spending your Saturday afternoon with us with those fascinating talks that really inspired me and made me feel very activated about working in the field of arts and climate change. So in case my video goes wafty again, I just want to say thank you.